Hello and welcome to part 4 of the ESG reporting series and how to fix ESG reporting. As usual, a short disclaimer. And before we have a look at what I want to show you today, I want to quickly recap what we did in the previous posts. So first we said, okay, the different approaches of the carbon emissions and how companies organize their business processes and how they record them, they do not really align or fit. Then we had a look at the so-called e-liability approach, that is basically like a value-added tax approach, where the carbon emissions from one stage in the supply chain are shifted on to the next ones. And then we had a look at, hey, how can we implement this process if we have an existing accounting system and if we want to do some special e-liability accounting. And the idea was, okay, hey, use the Power Platform here on top to fill both systems. Okay, now we had a look at another example, example 3. This was what we did last time and where I entered the transactions manually. So what did I do? I had a look at our company where I recorded the transaction. Then we finally saw how much of CO2 emissions are shifted on to our customer once we sell something. So the transactions that we recorded were those ones. I will not go through them. So if you're interested, have a look at the previous post. Then we produced something here. So we had a production audit and then we sold something. And with the sale of our product, part of our carbon emissions is shifted on to our customer. These were the balance sheet and income statement from a financial perspective. And then we had here the e-liability section with our carbon emissions. Now, in this post, I would like to focus on an example how we can automate the full process. And the first idea was, of course, as I mentioned in the beginning, create a Power App in the Power Platform and then create a UI, a user interface that fills the accounting system and that fills the other system or the other company, so to say. I did not do that because why? Well, first thing is, if I need to fill different companies, in my case it's companies, then I need multiple flows and they might be slow compared to running a single flow. So if I have two, I need double the time that I wouldn't need normally. But that's not the big case. What I thought is the big hurdle might be that the accountants, the purchasing managers, the people who work in production and everywhere, they might need to learn a new user interface. And that's something that might be difficult to accept for people, especially if they work already a couple of years with the existing system, if they know all the shortcuts, if they know how to handle it. So creating a new UI might be good and easy and maybe perfect from a technical perspective, but I'm not sure if the users would accept it. Therefore, I thought, hey, why don't we start using with the things that we have? So we have an existing ERP system. Can be SAP, can be Dynamic System, can be Navision, Oracle, whatever. And then we create an app here on top that takes this accounting entries from there and then fills the CO2 footprint or carbon emissions into our ERP company. Why did I do that? Well, users can work with the familiar user interface. It's faster because I need less flows. The only thing that we have to make sure is that we need to find a way how to ensure that no e-liability transaction is forgotten. But I will give you some hints what we can do. But now let's have a look at how you can implement this. And for that reason, I switched to my demo system. Okay, so here we are. As usual, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see my accounting ERP system. That's where people usually record their invoices, their purchase orders, their sales orders, just as they did it in the past. And this can be SAP, can be any system. And here on the right, I used a separate company where I record my carbon footprint. And now let's have a look at how it looks like if we record an electricity invoice. Yeah? And I'm doing this in a general ledger journal. Of course, you would do that typically in accounts payable, but the idea or the way how it works is the same. Yeah? So I create a journal here, and then in the line section, I have here the debit account, which is electricity expense. And then I have different financial dimensions. They are just needed for accounting controlling to analyze the transaction later on. For me, that's not that important what is stated here. Then let's say our invoice is for 1,750 euros and the offset account is a vendor, because you receive this invoice from your energy supplier. So basically you post here in debit an expense, and in credit accounts payable it's a vendor. Okay, and now let's say on the invoice you see a product carbon footprint of 200 kilos. So now the question is, how do you get this automatically transferred here? And what I did is I created a simple app. So here on top it should hopefully open soon. Carbon footprint app. That's a power app that I built myself. Nothing fancy, it's very simple. So you have 3 steps. In the first one you select the transaction, can be wages, can be electricity or fixed assets. So I only had these 3. Then you enter the carbon footprint and then you press a button and the button triggers a flow. If you do not know how to do that, have a look at my previous posts. So now let's select electricity. I think we said 200 kilos. And then we say, okay, let's create the transaction here. Now in the background, Power Automate flow is running, and this flow will create here a journal and the journal lines. So let's wait a second. Should not take too long. So the journal header is already there. We can see electricity carbon footprint. If we go into the lines, we should see the transaction here on the e-bridging account. That's the one that holds the offset. It's debited. And the e-liability is credited. That's what we want to have. And now you can either post it manually, but actually that's probably not what you want. So you can automate also the posting of the journals, and that can be realized in General Ledger. There's a periodic function, or here it's called post journals. So then you can define, okay, these kind of journals, they are posted every day 5 o'clock in the evening. And then the system is automatically doing that for you. Now let's create another journal, and this time I would like to record the transaction of a fixed asset acquisition. So I'm coming here. Let's create a new journal here. Now we have a fixed asset. I think I used a computer or something. Let's just choose something, maybe this one here. And then we say maybe this costs 85,000 euros. And the invoice comes from our vendor, our famous Ludwig vendor. And that's basically what the accountants would enter. Of course, there's an invoice number, but we skip all of the important things here. So now we need here in the carbon accounting system also a transaction. Again, how do we do that? Well, we just open the app here again. And this time, we will choose a fixed asset. Why? You see here they are loading. I load all the fixed assets that are in my system, so I have to wait a bit. And the fixed assets will then be created in a fixed asset journal. So not in this journal, but in the fixed asset module, there is a separate journal for that. So if we come here, I would expect that a journal is created here. So let's see. So we have here a fixed asset, and once you select fixed asset, I have a function that opens this drop down. So let's say, I think it was this number, and here let's say 27,500 kilo CO2 emissions. That's what our fixed asset supplier told us. Yeah? And then we can create here a flow and start it. And what should happen is a journal should be created here. A second, hopefully, with the carbon footprint that we have. And then, of course, also with the debit and credit accounts that charge our bridging and e-liability account. Yeah? So here we have this fixed asset. And then we see here the 27,500 kilograms of CO2 emissions. And the offset account is the vendor. And behind this account, there is a separate setup in the vendor groups that charges basically the e-liability account. So you cannot directly see it from here, but it's a kind of setting that is made in the subledgers of Dynamics or SAP or whatever you use. Okay, so that's the way how it could work. Yeah, there are of course other possibilities how you can implement that. Another option would be to use, for example, events, business events that are triggered or that are triggering a flow and that automatically create these transactions. Or you can use other tools to make sure that these parallel postings are basically made. Okay, so this is just one idea, and I assume you will have others. Would be great if you can share them with the community. And now let us go back to my PowerPoint for some closing remarks and some closing thoughts. Okay, so after this short demo, here's some thoughts on a summary level. So first, the e-liability approach that I showed you in this post and the previous ones, it seems to be superior and cheaper if I compare it with special sustainability software tools. Why? Because you have already your systems there, you use them, and then you use the Power Platform just to extend it. And the important thing here is that the accounting and Power Platform knowledge is necessary to incorporate this thing, but most of the time this knowledge is already there, because finance and accounting people, they have of course the accounting knowledge, and they are typically the ones that are responsible for that. And then Power Platform is also a tool that is often used there. And what I said here is also the ERP system that you use is kind of a natural choice, because all of the information is already there. So you have your vendors, you have your customers, you have your products. All is there, and you do not have to import them into another system. You do not have to create a portal or something else to record these kind of things. It's just there, and you can just extend your existing system with the Power Platform to incorporate this e-liability approach. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you on this e-liability approach. As usual, if you have comments or want to give some feedback, send me an email or put it in the comment section. Then again, thanks for watching and listening, and then till next time.